Hello, Andrew here again, and this is episode 139, and we're continuing in Matthew. Today we're at Matthew 19 verses 3 to 12. This is about the issue of divorce. Verse 3, some Pharisees came to Jesus, and to test him they asked, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any cause?" He answered, "Have you not read that the one who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, 'For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate.' They said to him, 'Why then did Moses command us to give a certificate of dismissal and to divorce her?' He said to them, 'It was because you were so hard-hearted that Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for unchastity and marries another commits adultery.' His disciples said to him, 'If such is the case of a man with his wife, it is better not to marry.' But he said to them, 'Not everyone can accept this teaching, but only those to whom it is given. For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Let anyone accept this who can.'" Well, I'm going to have two bites at this cherry, this one today and hopefully another one tomorrow. Jesus' disciples are here questioning him on the issue of divorce. And as we can see, this is the primary concern of this passage. It's worth noticing that the original question here is about the rights of men, not the rights of women. It's about the rights of men. Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any cause? I don't know if it would have occurred to them that a woman might want to divorce her husband. I suspect that given the social milieu of the day that this would have been very rare. Women may have wanted out. The question for them was, and what then? The context is crucial. While Jesus refers back to this Genesis story and God's intent that marriage be for life, and then riffs into the discussion of remarriage and adultery, I've wondered whether or not he would have taken quite the same line in 2020. There's a kind of a little bit of a confusing hint which hopefully we'll pick up tomorrow when he talks about those who are given particular gifts and that some can accept it and some can't. The reality is that Jesus is always looking out though for the most vulnerable. In this case, the women. This seems to completely escape the disciples. When Jesus comes out with his hard-lined response, they are clearly appalled. Their response says it all. If this is the case for a man with his wife, it's better not to marry. Effectively, if a man can't flick off his wife when he gets tired of her and upgrade to a newer model, why would any man want to get married? I can hear the internal questioning going something like this. Imagine knowing you're stuck with this woman for the whole of your life. You can't tell how it's going to turn out. What if she loses her looks? What if she's a nag? What if she can't give me sons? Surely there must be a back-out clause, or the risks are just too high. It's just not worth it. No thought as to what it might be like for the woman who's married to a brutish, uncaring, dictatorial, controlling, and perhaps violent male. For her there is no acceptable pathway to a new life. She's stuck with him and needs to learn to survive with him. If she leaves or is discarded by her husband, her options are very limited. Her father doesn't want her back. In all likelihood, he'll regard her as a failure, as having brought shame upon the family. And she'll be simply a liability. Her prospects for remarriage also are not good. She's second-hand goods. And the best she's likely to get is to be a subsequent wife to a man who already is married, maybe with 2 or 3 wives already. She's going to end up at the bottom of the pecking order and probably the slave to all. In a world without the domestic purposes benefit, with no property protections under the law, the option for many women, the only option, was prostitution. And we know whose fault that was, don't we? Hers. It's always hers. It seems that Jesus is making an appeal for the creation standard. As much as anything, I want to suggest is to protect the women. Would he be saying the same thing today? Maybe. Maybe not. He might, but for different reasons. I think he's always going to hold to the best and say, this is the gold standard. This is what Father would have for each of you. However, we know that you're not all going to make it. You're not. Would Jesus expect a woman to stay in an abusive relationship when she has other options? Would Jesus expect us to stay together when we were clearly making each other miserable? For some, turning life into a living hell. I'm not convinced he would. And even given his talk about adultery through remarriage, is Jesus suggesting that a failed marriage is the only sin that can't be forgiven? And that people are not allowed another chance at happiness unless their previous marriage partner dies? I'm not convinced that he would be pushing all of that either. I can't say for sure, I'm just not convinced that he would. I do believe, though, that marriage is potentially the most enriching relationship that we're likely to enter into. Lynn and I celebrate 40 years of marriage in a few months. Has it been easy? No. Have there been times when both of us have wondered whether or not we'd go the distance? Clearly there have been. There have been seasons when it's been hard work. Very hard work. And it's been worth it. Being both committed to hanging in there, even in the face of struggle, continuing to choose to love, even when the feelings have waned, can reap rich rewards in the long term. It rubs off the edges of selfishness in us when we need to defer each to the other, to honour them, to put their best interest before our own. This is not intended to be an unequal relationship, as it so often was in the first century, in the times of Jesus. It's intended to be one of mutual submission. And here's the thing. That's the whole point, is that marriage is intended to be synergistic. It's intended to be that which is life-giving for both of us, that because we're together, we'll each be more. That our marriage will mean that because we're together, we're more than the sum of our individual parts. And that Lynn is more because she's married to me, and I'm more because I'm married to her. That is the kind of gold standard that Jesus is pointing us to. The tragedy is that for many of us, it's something that we slug out. It's the opposite from synergy. It diminishes and demeans us and makes us less. And I think often, I've seen it, the best thing that can happen where there is not the will on both parts to make this work is that the pin get pulled and both walk away and are able to make a fresh start. Would Jesus be for that? I think there are cases that he would be. However, I can't say for certain. And I know we live in a different day. The context is everything. It's everything. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful. God bless you.